There is a shaking coming, not just in nations, not just in governments, but in the hearts of people everywhere. The world is moving faster than ever, and yet humanity is drifting further from the truth. We see confusion replacing clarity, fear replacing faith, and compromise replacing conviction. But this is not the time to hide, nor the time to doubt. It is the time to stand firm, to open our eyes, and to recognize that what is coming next will demand spiritual strength, not worldly comfort. Every season of history has had its defining moment. A time when truth was tested and faith was refined by fire. We are entering such a moment right now. You can sense it, the unease in the air, the division among people, the moral decay spreading like wildfire. But while many panic, those who are rooted in truth will rise. Because while the world trembles, purpose awakens. When everything around you starts to shake, remember that the shaking is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to reveal what cannot be shaken. When systems fail, when promises break, when powers collapse, what remains will be the foundation built on truth, courage, and divine strength. So here's the urgent warning. Don't sleep through this season. Don't let comfort silence your conviction. Don't wait for someone else to stand when it's your turn to move. Because what's coming next will separate those who truly believe from those who merely say they do. There is a divine purpose unfolding behind the chaos. The storms we see are not signs of defeat, but signals of transition. The world may look like it's falling apart, but in truth, it's being prepared for something greater. And those who walk by faith, not fear, will see the light break through the darkness. So rise up. Strengthen your heart. Fix your eyes on what is eternal, not temporary, because when the world is shocked, the faithful will be steadfast. When others see the end, you will see the beginning of something extraordinary. This is not the time to panic. It's the time to prepare. The warning is clear and the choice is yours. Stand firm or fall with the noise of the crowd. The world we live in is trembling, not only in its politics or economies, but in its very soul. You can feel it when you turn on the news, when you scroll through your phone, when you step outside and see the unease in people's eyes. Something is shifting beneath the surface. There is a shaking coming, not to destroy, but to reveal. Every structure built on instability is being tested. Every person who has built their life on things that do not last is beginning to feel that pull, that uncertainty, that need for something real. The shaking is not random. It is a divine disruption, a moment designed to wake people up from the slumber of complacency and remind them that truth cannot be moved even when the world does. Throughout history, seasons of shaking have come when humanity grows comfortable with compromise, when the line between right and wrong begins to blur, when truth becomes optional, when convenience replaces conviction. That's when shaking begins, because shaking exposes the foundation of what we've built. You don't know how strong something is until the storm hits it. And that's exactly where we are today. Nations boast about their strength, economies claim stability, leaders promise progress, but when everything starts trembling, we discover what is solid and what is sand. The shaking is separating what is real from what is temporary. It is God's way of saying, I will not let you settle for less than truth. This time of shaking is not a punishment, it's preparation. It's a refining fire meant to strengthen those who will endure and awaken those who have fallen asleep spiritually. Many people will panic when systems start to fail, when the familiar starts to fade, but those who are rooted in something greater will not be moved. The ones who understand that their hope doesn't depend on headlines or governments or markets will stand tall while others crumble. The shaking reminds us that our security cannot rest in what we can touch or control. It forces us to look upward when everything else falls apart. The world will call it chaos, but those who can see through spiritual eyes will call it alignment. Because the shaking is aligning everything with truth. It's bringing down what's false and lifting up what's pure. The noise, the confusion, the conflict, all of it serves a purpose. It's forcing people to choose where they stand. You can't be halfway committed when the ground beneath you is moving. You either stand firm or you fall. That's the reality of this moment. The shaking is the great revealer, exposing hearts, motives, and beliefs. What's inside will come out because when pressure builds, truth surfaces. In times like these, faith is no longer just a word people say. It becomes a lifestyle. The world's systems will tremble, leaders will stumble, promises will break, but those who are anchored in truth will find peace even in the storm. They won't be immune to the shaking, but they will stand through it. The strength of faith isn't proven when life is calm. It's revealed when everything is shaking, and yet you refuse to let go of your hope. So when you look around and see things falling apart, don't let fear take over. The shaking is not the end. It's the beginning of a transformation. What is weak will collapse, what is strong will endure, and what is eternal will shine brighter than ever. The world is being prepared for something greater, and those who recognize that truth will not be shaken. They will rise, they will endure, and they will become living proof that even when everything trembles, faith stands unmovable. Fear and confusion have become the air humanity breathes. Everywhere you look, people are searching for answers, but are met with more noise, more division, more uncertainty. The heart of the problem isn't the chaos around us. It's the distance between people and the truth. When truth is ignored, deception fills the gap. When conviction fades, confusion takes control. This is why fear has such a strong grip on the world today. People have drifted from the foundation that once gave them strength. They've traded truth for trends, conviction for comfort, and faith for feelings. The result is a society that looks alive on the outside, but is breaking on the inside. When truth is no longer the compass, direction is lost. You see it in families that no longer know where they stand, in leaders who no longer speak with courage, and in people who change their beliefs based on what is popular instead of what is right. Fear thrives in that kind of environment. It grows when the foundation weakens. Fear doesn't need darkness to survive. It only needs uncertainty. And when people step away from truth, uncertainty becomes their new normal. They worry about tomorrow because they've forgotten who holds it. They chase every voice because they no longer recognize the voice of wisdom. The noise of the world has become louder than the stillness of truth. And that's why peace is missing. Confusion spreads when people start redefining what was never meant to change. Right and wrong are no longer absolutes, they become opinions. Values that once held nations together are now mocked or ignored. In this moral fog, people start to stumble. They follow emotions instead of principles, opinions instead of purpose. And when that happens, fear becomes the natural response. Because without truth, there is nothing solid to stand on. Every decision feels risky. Every future feels fragile. And every challenge feels overwhelming. The further people drift from truth, the deeper they sink into fear. The greatest tragedy is that many don't even realize how far they've drifted. They've grown so accustomed to the darkness that they mistake it for normal. The lies of this world promise freedom, but deliver bondage. They tell people that truth is restrictive, that conviction is outdated, and that faith is irrelevant. But the moment truth leaves, chaos enters. Fear takes control when people stop believing in something bigger than themselves. You can't fight fear with motivation alone. You can't silence confusion with opinions. Only truth has the power to restore peace where panic has taken root. There comes a point when people must decide whether they will continue following the crowd or return to the foundation that never fails. The more we chase worldly answers, the emptier we feel. But the moment we turn back to what is true and unchanging, clarity begins to return. Fear starts to lose its grip because truth exposes the lies that feed it. Confusion begins to fade because truth brings light where darkness once ruled. The storms may still rage, but within truth there is stability. Fear and confusion dominate the world today because too many have forgotten what it means to stand firm in truth. They've allowed the temporary to replace the eternal, the popular to replace the powerful. But truth doesn't bend to the culture, it transforms it. It's the anchor in chaos, the compass in confusion, the foundation when everything else falls apart. When people return to that foundation, fear has no power and confusion has no voice. Because the moment truth reclaims its place, peace follows, strength returns, and the light begins to pierce through the darkest night. When the world begins to shake, it can feel like everything is falling apart. Systems collapse, institutions fail, and people lose trust in what once seemed secure. But there's a deeper truth beneath the surface. The shaking isn't meant to destroy, it's meant to reveal. What we are witnessing isn't just chaos, it's exposure. The things that can be shaken are being shaken so that what cannot be shaken will remain. This is how truth separates itself from illusion. How purpose stands firm while pretense crumbles. Every time the foundations of the world are tested, we see what's real rise to the surface and what's false fade into dust. It's easy to depend on the visible, our plans, our jobs, our governments, our possessions, but these are temporary supports. When life is stable, they seem enough. But when the ground begins to move, their weakness is revealed. The shaking strips away every illusion of control. It reminds us that power, wealth, and status are fragile, and that only truth endures. When the world trembles, people begin to see what truly matters. The noise of distractions fades, and suddenly the eternal things, faith, integrity, love, and purpose become visible again. The shaking is not cruelty, it is clarity. It exposes what we've trusted too much and reminds us where our real foundation lies. In times of shaking, those who have built their lives on shallow ground will panic, but those who have built on truth will remain calm. Because when you know your life rests on something unmovable, you don't fear the tremors. You recognize them as confirmation that you're standing on the right ground. The shaking divides people, not to punish, but to purify. It's like refining gold. The fire doesn't ruin the gold, it removes what's impure. The same is happening globally and personally. Every false hope, every fake promise, every empty foundation is being tested, and only what's real will last. This revelation isn't meant to shame anyone, but to awaken everyone. We've built too much of our lives around the temporary. We've trusted governments more than values, comfort more than courage, success more than sincerity. But the shaking has a way of putting everything back in perspective. It reminds us that true strength doesn't come from what we own, but from who we are when everything else is stripped away. Faith that depends on convenience isn't real faith. Conviction that survives only when things go well isn't real conviction. The shaking reveals depth. It separates those who merely believe from those who live by belief. What the world calls a crisis can actually be a cleansing. When things fall apart, it's often because they were never meant to stand in the first place. The collapse of the temporary makes room for the rise of the eternal. The world sees instability, but the wise see opportunity, a chance to rebuild on truth, to restore purpose, to realign priorities. The shaking exposes weakness, yes, but it also highlights strength. You begin to see the people and principles that remain unshaken, and you realize those are the ones worth building upon. So when you see the shaking in the world, in your life, in the systems you've depended on, don't lose heart. It's revealing the truth, not erasing it. It's showing you what will last when everything else is gone. What is rooted in truth will never collapse, and what stands on eternal ground will never be moved. That's why the shaking is necessary. It's the world's way of rediscovering stability. What cannot be shaken will stand. And in that standing, the unshakable foundation of faith, truth, and divine purpose will shine brighter than ever before. There comes a time when silence becomes dangerous and inaction becomes costly. The world is filled with people waiting for someone else to take a stand, hoping that change will come from somewhere else. But the truth is, the responsibility rests on each of us. Every person is being called to wake up from spiritual sleep, to stop drifting through life with passive faith, and to rise with purpose. The greatest deception of this generation is the belief that someone else will fix what's broken. We look to leaders, governments, systems, and influencers, yet forget that transformation begins within. The moment we open our eyes to the truth that we are called to stand firm in a collapsing world, we step into the role we were created for. The world doesn't just need more opinions, it needs people with conviction. It's easy to talk about problems, to complain about the darkness, but it takes courage to shine a light. Many have grown comfortable living on autopilot, watching the chaos unfold while hoping it doesn't touch their lives. But comfort is the enemy of growth. If the world is shaking, it's not just a warning, it's a wake-up call. We can't afford to stay asleep while truth is being twisted and values are being erased. The moment you decide to stand for what's right, even when it's unpopular, is the moment your life begins to make an impact. Standing firm doesn't mean being loud or confrontational. It means being consistent when everyone else wavers. It means holding on to integrity when lies are rewarded, holding on to faith when doubt surrounds you, and holding on to courage when fear tries to silence you. The collapse of the world's systems is not an excuse to lose hope. It's an invitation to display strength. The people who will rise in this season are not the most powerful, but the most grounded. They're the ones who refuse to bow to PR. Ashore, who refuse to trade conviction for convenience, and who continue walking forward even when the path is uncertain. Every generation faces its test, and this one is no different. The question is, will you rise to meet it? The easy road is tempting, to stay silent, to avoid conflict, to blend in. But that road leads to regret. You can't live a life of purpose if you're always trying to please the crowd. There will come moments when you'll have to stand alone, when your values will be questioned and your faith will be challenged. But in those moments, you discover who you truly are. Standing firm isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. It's about getting back up every time the world tries to knock you down. There's a power that awakens when you take responsibility for your stance. You begin to see the world differently. Instead of being overwhelmed by the darkness, you start looking for ways to bring light. Instead of being paralyzed by fear, you become a source of courage for others. The more you stand, the stronger you grow. The more you speak truth, the more your voice carries. The world may try to shake your foundation, but if you are rooted in truth, you will not fall. So this is the call, not for the faint-hearted, not for the complacent, but for those who are ready to live awake. The shaking is separating those who merely say they believe from those who truly do. This is the time to rise, to stand firm, and to take your place as a voice of strength in a trembling world. Don't wait for someone else to lead the way. The moment you decide to take your stand, you become part of the answer the world is waiting for. When the world looks like it's falling apart, most people see only disaster. But those with eyes of faith recognize something deeper, divine preparation. What appears to be chaos is often construction in disguise. The noise, the conflict, the instability, and even the suffering are not random. They are part of a greater design that humanity cannot fully see yet. Just as a seed must break before it grows, the world must go through breaking before renewal comes. Every shaking, every storm, every unexpected turn is preparing the ground for something new, something stronger, something purer than what existed before. The tragedy is that so many mistake this divine preparation for destruction. They panic instead of preparing. They fear instead of trusting. And in doing so, they miss the opportunity to be part of the transformation that's unfolding. This moment in history is not the end. It's the transition to a new beginning. The systems that once seemed unshakable